Well, hello and welcome to our Easter School revision session. This hopefully shouldn't take a huge amount of time of you, and it should be able to springboard you to a lot of other resources and activities that you will have seen linked underneath the description of this clip. It's really important to say that there shouldn't be anything new in what we're going to go over, and what I'm wanting to do is to just signpost you to a few more things to help with your revision. Revise what you need to revise is my advice. You're going to have a very intense few weeks leading up to your examination period, and what I think is really important for you to know is that you also need to rest. There's no point going into the next month before your exam if you're absolutely exhausted before you even start. We have another 4 weeks left at school, give or take, which will enable us to revise in class as well, and that's a really significant advantage that you might have against other subjects because you've worked so hard. I know Miss Armstrong's done a stunning job with her class, and I know that my class have worked really hard despite the fact they've had me. So what I want to do today is I want to talk to you about where you can get information from. I want to talk about things that you can revise, key things to get right from your centre assessed exams, exam technique, past exam questions, dates for your exams, and any final questions that you've got as well. So in the description below you should have a number of links to revision mind maps, which I talked through, which I know that you've already had access to, both groups. The walking talking mocks of your centre assessed exams. Remember, these are previous exam questions. You'll see links to the lessons on faith, philosophy and life, my YouTube channel, as I know you will know about, and that will give you specific links to the lessons of the pre-release and the themes as well. If there is a topic you needed to go over, then please spend some time reviewing those. Each lesson's only about 10 to 11 minutes long, so that may be a good use of your time, or not, depending on your viewpoint about my teaching. So to start with then, just wanted to go through some of the quotes that hopefully you are familiar with. As you know, for your 5-mark answers and your 12-mark answers, you do need to be able to use Bible quotes or quotes from the Tanakh. For Christianity and themes, I would recommend that you use the tall items quotes. Remember, don't say that the tall item says. These are all quotes from the Bible, so you need to be using the phrase, the Bible teaches that, or the Bible says. I'm going to talk you through each one in turn, just so you're really clear on what they are. Treat others as you like to be treated. Really self-explanatory. That's to do with the idea that you there's justice and that you do what you would like to be done to you. Christians would refer to that as the golden rule. Do not commit adultery. Adultery is where you have an affair if you're married. So that can only apply really with regards to the relationships unit on themes. Love your neighbour, love the Lord your God. Love your neighbour obviously fits a lot of questions. Love the Lord your God, that's about putting God first, and you can understand how you could apply that to a lot of questions as well. Created in God's image, imago Dei. So the idea is that God is within, God has made us as who we are, and therefore we are who we are because God has built us that way. Therefore there's human dignity that comes into play, sanctity of life, quality of life, and the rest of that. Turn the other cheek means about giving someone a second chance. It's a phrase Jesus used to sort of demonstrate this idea that you should have be given someone a chance to reform and to change. So you can obviously apply that to crime and punishment, but you can also apply that to any questions on forgiveness as well. An eye for an eye, about revenge, getting your own back, doing back to you what's been done. Remember, the biblical principle behind this quote is that you shouldn't be over punishing or over getting things back. There should be a fairness to what is being done. Do not commit murder. Please, guys, do not be writing do not kill in your exams. The 6th commandment is do not murder, and it's a very distinct difference. You cannot murder an animal. I know that people have disagreed with me on that. You've argued with me on that time and time again. But the definition of murder is a deliberate killing of another human being. You can't accidentally murder someone, and you can't murder a mosquito. So do not murder is specifically ring-fenced for humans, and that's a commandment that God has given. And lastly, 7 times 70 you should forgive, or 70 times 7 you should forgive, or 70 times 70, or 7 times 7. The phrase gets translated in different ways, but the point is that you should forgive an indefinite amount of time. So they're what the tall items are, and you can obviously apply those to a lot of different things. Just talking through the God jitters then. So the God jitters primarily are for your Christianity paper. You can apply them to your themes paper as well. God sent his son to save us from our sins, clearly to do with salvation, but also the incarnation, can tie into Easter, tie into questions about Christmas, tied to this idea that the value of human life, heaven and hell, it would fit with that as well. Our Father in heaven, that's a quote that Jesus used as part of the Lord's Prayer, or the Our Father, if you were thinking it from a Catholic perspective. And it's the idea that God lives in heaven, that he is our Father, that God therefore cares for us, that Jesus had a unique relationship with God that we can mirror because of his death on the cross. In heaven, death will be no more. Again, clearly ties in with the idea of resurrection. Resurrection being people coming back to life again after death, not reincarnation. Please do not confuse the two. Reincarnation was a Buddhist or Hindu or Sikh belief where your soul gets reborn into another body. That is not what's going on here. Resurrection is where you go to heaven or hell, or Roman Catholics would be purgatory as an alternative, and purgatory would therefore lead to heaven. Purgatory never leads to hell. Death will be no more. There'll be no more tears, no more crying, for the old order will have passed away. That's in the book of Revelation. Jesus went up to Jerusalem. It's primarily about Jesus travelling on pilgrimage, that one. So you may not need that, but it is useful to have in your arsenal. I and the Father are one. Only applies to the Trinity, guys. Okay, do not try and apply this to humanity. Jesus said, I and the Father are one. It's that idea that Jesus and God are inseparable. Really important that's a quote you could use if you have a question on the Trinity. Where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I will be. It will fit with any sort of church service. This is Jesus that said this, by the way. It would fit with the ascension, because that's when Jesus said it. It fits with church services, as I say. So again, you can apply that in a whole myriad of different ways. The Word became flesh and lived among us. So again, fits the idea of the Trinity, fits the idea of the incarnation. The word, remember, fits with this idea of Jesus. It's the Greek word logos, don't get hung up about that. So the Word became flesh, became a human, became incarnate, put on a human suit and lived among us. Obviously fits with salvation, redemption, as well as incarnation. Baptize everyone in the name of the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. Really clear with regards to baptism. Also fits the idea of the Trinity. I'm the resurrection and the life. Again, you've got heaven, hell, purgatory, this idea of the afterlife. Jesus said this, by the way. Also, you've got this idea about life, and life in all its fullness. So this idea that we are, Jesus is the resurrection and the life, the one who gives everything that you need to have a good life today. And you can obviously apply that to your themes as well. There's not slave or free, for you're all one in Jesus. Obviously that fits with regards to your themes, and any questions with regards to equality. Everyone is one if they believe in Jesus. They're all viewed the same. Judaism only then, guys. He's coming to judge the world. That primarily refers to God. Remember G-D. Can also apply to the Messiah as well. So make sure that any of these you're saying the Tanakh teaches that. Circumcise every baby boy. Obviously fits the covenant of circumcision. good and upright is the Lord. So this idea that you've got to trust God, he knows what is best. The mitzvot are there to support him, or support Jews, should I say. Abram, leave your country and go to the land that I will show you. Remember, the pre-release is very big on covenants, and this is a covenant that was given to Abraham, this idea that he had to leave his country and go somewhere else. And therefore his name will be blessed. He would have as many descendants as there are stars in the sky. His name would be famous, and he'd have all the land that he could see. I am also circumcise every baby boy, obviously also fits with Abraham. I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, the Mosaic covenant. It's about God's omnipotence and power. It's about Passover. I know that's not on your pre-release, but it may be a useful quote for you to be familiar with. I am the Lord your God, as in the Jewish people. Celebrate this feast every year at the right time. Fits many questions with regards to festivals. I know you've got Yom Kippur to look at as well. So that's, I think, Rosh Hashanah as well, from what I remember, but we'll go through the pre-release in a moment. The Messiah will teach us his ways. This idea that the Messiah will teach us about how God would want people to live. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. Remember the Sabbath, this is a Friday night to Saturday evening, and there's lots of things that happen. If you're not sure about the Sabbath, you do need to watch those videos back. Set your heart and soul to seek the Lord your God, really important. That's obviously to do with, it fits so many questions. It's about Jews doing what God would want them to do. Focusing on God, a bit like love the Lord your God in the previous one. Do not eat anything the Lord hates. Again, fits with kosher food laws, kashrut, trifa. You need to be familiar with those, and you need to know what some of those rules are. Do not murder, talked about already, and Abraham called upon the name of the Lord, this idea of faith and truth and living in action. So they're the quotes that you need to be familiar. You need to know how to apply them to your questions, and you need to be writing them with phrases like the Tanakh teaches or the Bible teaches that, explaining those as well. So I've got some exam technique stuff just to sort of mention to you. None of this will be new to you, I am sure. So you've got to be using terms like the Bible teaches that, the Tanakh teaches, and remember to use phrases like some Church of England Christians, some Roman Catholic Christians. Remember to always use the word some as well. It gets you around quite a few issues. Remember, Roman Catholics are often strict and disagree with most things other than capital punishment, which they strangely traditionally apply and teach for. However, I make it very clear that there is a shift within Roman Catholic theology at this point. So you could be referencing that as well. The Pope has very clearly said that it is an abhorrent act, capital punishment, but it is still on the Catholic Catechism. Quakers would say love's the most important thing as a third denomination. With regards to Judaism, you've got Orthodox and Reformed Jews. Orthodox Jews are stricter Jews who still have a belief in the Messiah, whereas Reformed Jews are more up to date. Orthodox Jews would be doing things in Hebrew, and that's the one that only men are important in worship in terms of the minyan, and Reformed Jews would have minyan would have women as well, and they would have worship there with women involved. So just going over then how to answer questions. Again, I know that you know this already, so forgive me for going over it. Part 1 is always a multiple choice question where you need to tick a box. Not complicated if you know. Part 2 is for you to write 2 bits of information down about a topic, so make sure when you go through every single topic when you're revising it that you know those 2 things. If possible, write them as a sentence. Remember, part 3 is a 4-mark answer. You need to do point explain. There's no need for a quote, but focus on the spelling on the question. If it asks for similar or contrasting or different, make sure that you apply those, and where possible try and use denominational differences as well. Influence as well, obviously, for the practices section. For part 4 it's the same as a part 3. It's a 5-mark though, because you also need a quote in there as well that we've just talked about. If possible, explain the quote back to the question. It shows the examiner you know what you're talking about. And part 5 then is the extended writing. It's worth half of the mark. Quite often there's the 3 mark for spelling, punctuation and grammar of that as well. I would recommend that you use FARM, for, against, rebuttal, my opinion, using PEEL for each of those: point, evidence, explanation and link. If you find that you're running out of time, then skip the rebuttal and just do FAM instead. You are going to hamper your results, if your marks, if you don't have your opinion in. Please be clear though, it's not actually your opinion the examiner wants to know. Your examiner wants to know that you can reach a well-reasoned conclusion. So I think a phrase that's useful is something like, overall I think that X is the best argument because. I think that's probably where you need to head. With regards to exam technique 3, AQA have very usefully put together these list of command words and what they mean. These are words that you will see in your paper. There is evaluate, that's obviously to do with testing your evaluation skills, considering different viewpoints and arriving at a judgment, as we've just talked about. Explain, which is testing knowledge, understanding of beliefs, teachings and practices. It requires you to identify relevant points and demonstrate understanding by adding detail on developing those as well. Explain how X may influence Y. We talked about that briefly a moment ago with regards to the practices section. You've got to talk about the impact that faith has on that particular topic or individual or group. And lastly, if it asks you to give something, it's basically asking you about recall knowledge, asking you to give 2 examples or 2 beliefs about something. So that's basically just putting information down. Now the exam board have also put together a list of key terms. You don't have to know all of these, but they are terms that they would suggest that you are aware of. They're terms that may be used in exam questions. You certainly won't be asked to define any of these. It probably would be like a part 1 question where you have to choose the correct definition. So what I've done is I've got all those linked below, and you'll see one for Christianity, one for Judaism, and one for your themes as well. So do have a read of those. If there's any words you don't understand, then it may well be worth you having a read over of those. So I want to just show you now where you can get past papers from. People always ask, where do I get past papers from? What help can I get? Well, I'm going to show you a website now that's got them all. You can access them. It's quite interesting to read some of the examiner reports as well, and it also has commentary on with regards to a number of papers and how exam questions could be marked. But obviously make sure you're only getting sucked into the things that are relevant to you, because Judaism and Christianity are the things that are relevant to you. You don't need to be, and obviously the appropriate parts of themes, you don't need to be getting hooked into some of the other things. So I'm just going to share my screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in here AQA Religious Studies GCSE, and the top hit comes up as GCSE Religious Studies A. U1A, there are a few specifications, but U1A, and then you've got here, as you scroll down, specification, planning resources, teaching resources, assessment resources and key dates. Your key thing is going to be looking at assessment resources, and then you'll see here you've got lots and lots and lots of information. There's past papers. Please note we are Christianity and Judaism is what you're looking at. It's not the Catholic ones, it is Christianity and Judaism. And you're also needing to find the please note these are just the same thing, they're just in larger type for candidates that have got visual impairment. You also need to find 2A non-textual studies. Now to do that you can do that a few different ways. You could select this component and you've got paper 1, paper 2, and then you can do option, and option 1 is Buddhism, so you don't want that. You want option 3, which is Christianity, and I believe it's option 6. Let's have a look. Yeah, option 6 for Judaism. So underneath paper 1 you need option 3 and option 6, and that will bring up to you quite a load of stuff. It gives you past exam questions, so there's June 2019 for example, and it also gives you examiner reports. These are really helpful if you've got time to look through them, because what it does is it goes through every single question in turn and gives you a write-up about things that were done well and things that could be done differently. You've also got, if I just clear my paper for my filters there, if I do component paper 2, again you get the same thing. Remember, I'm after the option 2A, and I want the non-textual studies. Again, got all the same information there as well for you. So yeah, the examiner reports are useful. You've got, don't get hung up about the mark schemes, that's what we've been talking about extensively. Now, in terms of answers and commentaries, what I really like about this, and it doesn't go through every single paper by a long stretch, but what this does is if you click on it and just load one of them up, again make sure you choose the correct papers, you will get here some sample answers and what the marks would be for those questions from the exam board perspective. It doesn't go through everything, but does give you a fair indication of the difference and why they would gain a 3 or a 4 mark. Remember, not everything does apply to you, so use those appropriately. So you'll find all of that, as I say, on if you go to Google, type in AQA Religious Studies GCSE, select study option A, and then go to assessment resources, and that will give you everything we've just gone over there for you as well. So in terms of going forward from here, these are the dates that have been pre-released by the exam board. They are subject to school confirmation, as I know that there are still potentially some changes that will happen until you're given your final exam date timetable. So the idea would be that Christianity and Judaism, they're the 2 papers that you sit in one sitting with a practices and beliefs for both Christianity and Judaism. Like the centre assessed exam that you just did, you need to make sure that you time that well at 1 hour 45 to get both parts done. And the 26th of May is your themes exam. Remember, there are 6 themes in that paper. You only do 4, and you need to make sure that you know the 4 that you are doing. If you try and answer one on war and peace, for example, you may not do as well because we've not taught you that one. So you've got relationships, religion and life, religion, crime and punishment, and religion and social justice. So please make sure that when you go through that, that you make the that you choose the appropriate sections, and that's the one you'd have the separate booklet for to write in, whereas the Christianity and Judaism you'd be actually writing in the exam booklet. It's just the way that AQA do it. So be aware of those dates. I will be doing a drop of last minute information for both papers a few days before that exam. I say there is a lot of stuff that will help you with your revision. I appreciate that's been half an hour of your life that you've just enjoyed or not watching this, but hopefully it's been helpful for you. And just get through revising, use any of the links below, use any of the topics that you need below, and I know you'll be amazing. But anyway, we've got another 4 weeks when we're back after Easter, so yeah, any questions, give us a shout. All right, have a good one, take care, and have a break as well.